And our last presenter is Rafi Nulman. Rafi and I have been very much connected to one another because he's one of the distinguished fellows in the program, and he and I have formed a very, very deep friendship. In fact, he's trying to get me to do unusual things. He invited me one night to a bookbinding work, and with another student, there were three of us. I was, considerably older and perhaps had less dexterity, but my book was a disaster. And Rafi's book was just beautiful. And I still love him. So, Rafi.
Now I'm hungry for scones. So I try to lead a healthy lifestyle. I just moved to California, so I try to eat well and get enough sleep, go to CrossFit whenever I can. But there's one unhealthy vice that I've stuck with despite everything, and that's smoking hookah, the Middle Eastern water pipe. It all started 16 years ago, March of 2001. My best friend Tom and I were walking through a small thicket of trees, and there we saw it, the bench. The bench is the perfect spot in Jerusalem to smoke hookah. The bench is situated across a small valley from the old city walls. And in Jerusalem, it's an angry city. It's not like Chicago. You're walking on the street, and there's people shouting, and car doors slamming, and honking. But as we walked through that small thicket of trees towards the bench, everything quieted down. And the only sound you could hear was the wind whooshing up from the valley below, carrying the heavy scent of olive trees. And we sat there, shoulder to shoulder, the hookah between us, looking out at the old city walls, inhaling the sweet, kind of acrid smoke, and watch it get carried away on the white breeze. And we started going again and again and developed a little bit of a routine. Tom would pack the head of the hookah with tobacco while I'd light the coal. And once the coal was hot, I'd give it to him and turn on a little burner for the Turkish coffee. And when the hookah was hitting and the coffee hot, we'd sit down and have these awesome conversations. Our bodies relaxed, looking out at the old city walls. And this is really special for Tom and for me. You see, we became friends in high school because we were both a little bit lonely in the same way. It's not that we didn't have friends. We'd show up to parties and say hi to people, but we'd always show up alone. Like, there's some people who can immediately contextualize themselves in a group of friends, and they always know who they're showing up with, and then there's people like Tom and me, floaters between the different groups and the seams between things. And so having this spot where we could have these conversations was really special. But it's probably not the way you imagine it, these intimate conversations. See, my sister, when she meets with her best friend, they sit face to face, make aggressive eye contact, and validate the shit out of each other. And for Tom and for me, it was a little bit different. We had sort of a bro code, this one rule, which is you can talk about anything, but give the other guy some space. If I'm talking about something tough, I know that he's listening. He doesn't need to get up in my face. But if we had that rule in place, we could both look out and have these awesome conversations. For example, once we talked about what it feels like to be lonely, to be excluded. And for me, whenever I felt left out of things, I have this instinct to get away, to run away and try to build myself up. And even now, I have this kind of crazy tape in my mind that says if I just make a little bit more money or get that next promotion, I can go back to all those times that I felt small as a kid and somehow protect that kid. And Tom, he was different. Whenever he felt excluded or lonely, he had this sustaining vision. He wanted to form a family, to create this unit where everyone felt a part of things, to be a father. We kept going to the bench year after year, smoking hookah, and our conversations changed. We talk about first kisses and exams and transitioning into graduating high school and then joining the army, which is mandatory in Israel, and finally leaving the army. I remember the last time I went to the bench. we had the usual routine. Tom packed the head of the hookah with tobacco, and I lit the coal, and once the coal was hot, I passed it to him and turned on the little burner with the Turkish coffee. And we sat looking out at the old city walls, the wind whooshing up from the valley below. Tom held the mouthpiece of the hookah, kind of inhaled and exhaled the white smoke. He looked out at the old city walls, and he asked me without turning, he said, "So have you heard back from any colleges?" And I kind of took a deep breath, and I said, yeah, I got into UChicago, and I think I'm going to go. And he didn't look at me. He kept smoking, and he said, "Congrats, man. Proud of you." And I looked over at him, and I can tell in that moment just how upset he was, that our friendship was predicated on the idea that we're there for each other, and we show up for each other, and I was leaving. And I could see tears in his eyes, but I knew kind of the bro code, the one rule. I didn't say anything about it. And so indeed, I did come to Chicago, and I went here for undergrad and stuck around. And Tom and I actually stayed in touch over the years. And we'd talk every so often on the phone. I'd go back to Israel to see him, to see my family. One time, he calls me, he says, "Rafi, I've met someone." He says, "She's smart, she's beautiful, she laughs at my jokes." I said, "She's probably not that smart then." And he says, "Yeah, and the special thing is that I have with her the type of conversations that we used to have. And I'm so happy for him that he's found this person, and a little bit sad that it's in the past tense that he's using the term conversations." But the reason I thought about this story actually happened at Booth, when I was studying at Booth. Tom called me up to say that he had some work trip, and he created this crazy 72-hour layover in Chicago. I was living in MPP at the time. It's pretty close to here. And I was so excited. I rented a car to go pick him up at the airport. I pick him up at the airport, and it's like no time has passed. We put on the one radio station that everyone listens to in Israel that's still playing 80s and 90s hits. And he's drumming on the dashboard, and I'm hitting the top of the car while we're driving back. And he's showing me photos of rings that he's thinking of getting for his girlfriend. And it's awesome. It's like no time has passed. I put him up in my apartment in MVP. We go to sleep. And in the morning, something's off. He just looks upset. He looks anxious. I say, what's going on, buddy? He says, "Listen, the whole thing with the rings that I showed you, don't tell anyone about that. I talked to my girlfriend last night, and something's come up." I say, "Yeah, no, not a problem. Like, do you want to talk about it?" He's like, "You know what? I need to make some phone calls. Let's talk this evening. You want to maybe smoke some hookah?" I said, "Yeah." So we go throughout our day, and I show him some of the sights in Chicago. In the evening, I go rummaging through my apartment, and I find the hookah, and I blow all the dust off of it. We go through our usual routine. Tom packs the head while I light the coal. Once the coal is hot, I pass it to him and use the terrible electric ovens at MPP to make the Turkish coffee. And when the hookah was hitting and the coffee was hot, we settled in. I say, "So what's going on, buddy?" I remember distinctly, he was holding the hookah, the mouthpiece in his hand, and he's smoking slowly. He says, "So the whole thing with the ring, it's not really a good time. I talked to my girlfriend, and she's pregnant. I'm going to be a dad." In that moment, I looked over at him, and I could see that he was nervous and anxious and so excited and so happy. And I thought about all those moments that we talked about this together back at the bench all those years ago. And I started getting so happy for him, and I could feel the tears coming to my eyes. But Tom, he knew the bro code. He didn't say anything about the tears. Thank you.